Hi, my name is Maya, and I am a 16-year-old female. This incident happened to me when I was 14 years old, and yes, it has only been 2 years, but this encounter still lingers in the back of my mind like it was yesterday. I'd like to start off by saying that I've been prone to having sleep paralysis my entire life. I remember early days when I was young, ranging from 4 years old to about 6 years old. During that time, I don't overly remember exact details, but I do know for a fact the exact play of events. I'll wake up from a nightmare or an unsettling dream, but instead of shooting up out of my slumber, my body would be still. Not still as in I just woke up and I'm tired. No, still as in fight or flight. I would feel adrenaline pulsing through my veins like I'm standing on a cliff, and that god-awful cold sweat like someone or something is breathing down my neck. A heavy pressure would be pressed against my chest like someone took a dumbbell and placed it right on my rib cage, stopping me from taking deep breaths, making my body struggle for air, and my heart rate increase. I would feel my heart slam against my body and hear ringing in my ears, becoming the only steady noise I could hear. The environment that I'm sleeping in would be silent. Too silent. I would feel trapped in my own body, only being aware of what I can see using my two eyes, which even then felt like a struggle to look around. I would also have a gut-wrenching feeling that something was watching me. Basically, just the basic symptoms of sleep paralysis, which is completely normal for children with overactive imaginations. But sometimes my imagination would go even further and create figures. Dark, long, grotesque people standing in the corner of my room, lurking on my ceiling, even sitting in a crouched fetal position next to my bed. Even if I couldn't see these people, I knew they were there, my brain creating pictures so I would know exactly what was out of my line of sight. You know, it's funny what your brain does to you when you're scared. But this encounter doesn't feel like imagination. And even to this day, I do believe something else was in the room with me when it happened. I'd like to mention that the house I still live in gives off a weird vibe, especially in the basement. I'm sure you all have heard scary ghost stories about basements, but my house genuinely has a weird shift of energy when you walk toward the back hallway leading to the stairs. When we first bought the house, it was old, giving off that definitely built in the 70s kind of vibe, though my dad thankfully renovated it to look brand new. And during this renovation period is where this story takes place. You see, it was a normal day. I went to school, came home, ate dinner, basically the works. When nighttime finally came and the sun slowly went down, I knew it was time to get up to my nighttime shenanigans. Growing up, and still now, I've always been a night owl. Getting up in the morning sounded like the worst thing ever, but staying up late into the hours of the night was my thing. So I went to my bedroom and watched my phone for a couple hours, scrolling various social media apps, texting friends, and watching YouTube until about 11 o'clock. Before I go on, I want to explain my room setup. It's very crucial for what I'm about to tell you. My basement is pretty much a big rectangle. My stairs are at one side of the basement, and my room is at the opposite end diagonally, the farthest exit point in case of a fire. My basement is also completely open, with no walls blocking anything off. So when I look out of my room, I can see the stairs and also my brother's room that is on the same wall as the stairs on the other side of the basement. Once you enter my bedroom, you'll find my bed is on the same wall as my door, meaning when I lay in my bed, I cannot see my door. My bedroom is also quite large, having a king-size bed in the middle of it, and due to the house being decently old, it likes to creak. Anyway, I'll get on with the story. After scrolling social media until about 11 o'clock, the creaking started. I just assumed it was the house adjusting, or even the furnace kicking on, or someone walking around to get water in the middle of the night. It started off as small creaks throughout the house, little noises here and there, barely noticeable. But when my eyes started to feel heavy, the creaking started to get annoying. I like to sleep in silence, and the small noises were not doing it for me. So I rolled out of bed, tiptoeing my way to my brother's bedroom, checking if he was awake and the culprit of the noise. I moved swiftly and silently, feeling my bare feet move across the cold concrete floor that had not been renovated to hardwood yet. I peeked my head into my brother's room, using my phone flashlight as my only source of lighting to see my younger brother fast asleep, with my two new kittens curled up like cinnamon rolls, peacefully asleep with him. I knew those cats took a solid 20 minutes to fall asleep due to them being young. My brother took about 30 minutes to fall asleep. He was always playing video games and was a light sleeper, and it made it really hard for him to fall asleep. So seeing the three of them passed out let me know they were not the source of the noise. I made my way upstairs. The stairs were creaking below my feet, loud and deliberate. But once I made my way to my parents' bedroom, I saw them both snoring, curled up under the covers. Both my parents are extremely heavy-footed, and I knew I would have heard them walking around if they were awake. But I checked just to be safe. At this point, I believed that the noise must have just been coming from the house itself, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I figured I might as well make my way back to my bedroom and deal with it. I closed the door to my bedroom, getting ready to lie in bed, when I heard the creaking change. Instead of sporadic, it felt rhythmic. I mentally paused, putting my phone down and crawling into bed. I felt my feet starting to go numb. Unaware of what was happening, I listened closer. The noise was distant. The house fell silent. Once again, too silent. No air conditioning, no static. Just silence and my breathing and heartbeat. My hands started to go numb. I heard the noise again, sharper. It sounded like it was at the top of the stairs, as if someone was walking down, not walking, tiptoeing. My legs went numb, and at this point I started to realize what was happening. In my mind, I was thinking, how can this be happening? I'm awake. In the midst of my chaotic thoughts, the creaking got louder and closer. It was faint, but I could still hear it, as if someone was about halfway down the stairs and walking. I waited in the dead air. Then I realized that the noise was getting louder and faster, as if someone went from tiptoeing far away to walking closer, all the way to sprinting and stomping. My heart was racing, and at this point my whole body had gone numb while I sat up in my bed. I couldn't move, not even my neck. The noise got louder and faster until it stopped right outside of my door, as if a giant had just halted from running a marathon. I couldn't tell if the noise was just my heartbeat or if it was in real life, but it felt so real. Whatever was outside, my door sat in dead silence for what felt like hours. I began to feel a cold breath run down my neck. Cold sweat began to drip down my back, and I felt something in the room with me. In that moment, I regained feeling in my pinky and quickly grabbed my blanket, yanking it over my head, falling to my side in a fetal position, shaking, cold and terrified. When I was a kid, I used to play on a trampoline with my brother and best friend. We used to play a game where someone was blindfolded and you had to feel the movements on the trampoline to tag the other players. That feeling of the ground shifting beneath you, as if something is putting pressure on the floor, was something I had to pay attention to in order to win the game. And then, in that moment, as I lay there, I felt right next to my feet something sit on the bed beside me. My feet fell into the divot of something's body, putting pressure on my bed. And right as that happened, another pressure was put down next to my arm, as if something was sitting right in front of my face. I stayed frozen, feeling tears roll down my face, over the bridge of my nose, soaking my pillow, unable to stop shaking. After what felt like about 30 minutes, the pressure slowly released, as if whatever was standing over me knew I would never come out from under that blanket, even if my life depended on it. I heard my door creak open and my mom walked into my room, asking if I was okay. I didn't believe it was her at first, but once the blanket was ripped off my head, I felt warmth come back into the room. My mom wondered why I was crying and shaking. She asked me what happened, and I began to recall the exact events. She reassured me that it was just sleep paralysis. When I asked her, "Why did you come in here?" she said that she had just had a bad feeling, and once she got up to get some water, she had an urge to come check on her children. That night, my brother had a nightmare of a dark creature leaning over his bed, just staring at him, telling him to wake up, to move, to make a noise, and thankfully, he did not. After my mother told me the reason she came down to check on us, she also mentioned that it was time to go to school. I checked my alarm clock on the side of my bed to realize that it was 7 a.m. I had laid there all night, horrified. The next day went on as normal, although I could not shake that feeling of breath down my neck. and I still sometimes get that feeling and wonder if whatever was in my room that night is coming back for what it wanted. After telling this story countless times and being told numerous times that it was just sleep paralysis, I still wonder, was it sleep paralysis or more? We live right on the river between West Virginia and Maryland, in the mountains, you could say. We had just received our double lover hammock during full-blown berry season, and we couldn't wait to snuggle up and watch the stars. After fighting with the ropes, knots, and straps, we finally got it hung securely between 3 shade trees in the corner of the backyard. It was about 75 yards from the house, in a nice secluded spot where we wouldn't be seen by nosy neighbors or passing cars. Excited to get the night going, we gathered candy, snacks, and the berries we had been picking right near where the hammock hung. We lay back, snacking, listening to music, and trying to spot stars through the branches overhead. Then Luke, my hubby, started fiddling with the flashlight. He said he had just heard something over by the ditch, about 15 yards away. He asked me, "Do you see those shining eyes looking at us?" We both assumed it was a deer. I quickly saw exactly what he was talking about. At first, the eyes were about 3 feet off the ground. Then they slowly began to rise, 5 feet, then 8 feet high, and then they vanished. While this was happening, we realized something else. There were no crickets chirping, no cicadas buzzing, just rustling leaves. The speaker had died about an hour earlier, so we had been enjoying the natural bug sounds until it suddenly went quiet. Soon after, there was a rustle in the woodline. Luke grabbed his handy-dandy flashlight again. One treetop was moving, even though there wasn't a hint of wind. The shaking grew faster, stronger, until the whole tree was moving. And this wasn't some little sapling. It was a tree with a trunk as thick as a thigh, shaking like it was caught in a tornado. Then the brush and bushes began to part, crashing, breaking. Something was moving through it. Panic set in. It was prime berry season, and bears are no strangers to our area. We made a run for the house. About 15 steps into our dash, there was a crazy loud noise. Now let me explain this sound the best I can. Imagine the roar of a massive jungle cat in heat, mixed with the scream of a dog that had just been horribly injured by a speeding semi-truck. A sound so terrible that it sent fear straight to the bone. Straight terror. That's the only way to describe it. Immediately, the same sound, but in a different tone, came from our left, almost like a response. As our feet hit the gravel in the driveway, another call answered from across the street in the woods. That made 3 different bone-chilling terror calls. We didn't look back. We barreled through the door and locked it the second it slammed shut behind us. We huddled together on the couch in total silence. It felt like forever. Then there was a heavy thump that rattled the house. Something large dragged along the side of it. Imagine a cow leaning against a wooden fence and running along it. Then, silence again. Within maybe 30 minutes, the crickets slowly started chirping once more. About a month later, we finally heard something we could compare those roars to. The Sierra sounds from California. Never in my life have I been that scared. It was a fear that went straight to my soul. And no, I haven't slept in that new hammock since. We still wonder what we heard that night. Was it Bigfoot? Was it 3 bears with heartburn? Was it a bobcat looking for a date? It was something. All right, a pure terror-filled night with a sound we will never forget. When it comes to Wendigos, skinwalkers, and paranormal activity, I believe they tend to attach themselves to people who are more sensitive to them. That said, I personally haven't had too many experiences, at least not until recently. I work for a company in an office building downtown in a busy city. We have a small team, so we all get along very well. Because of how the office is set up, I ended up with an office that includes a walk-in storage room or closet, while most others only have small closets. I let a few coworkers use my closet since I don't need all the space. I also have an open door policy, as long as I'm not in a meeting, and I keep all important files locked up. I'll name a few people involved, though the names have been changed. They'll be important later. Kyle is the kind of person who can easily make people laugh. A few years ago, he started pulling small pranks, and we'd pay him back. Nothing harmful, just harmless jokes. Even our boss gets involved sometimes. Kyle is one of the people who keeps some of his work items in my closet. During the winter, when it gets dark early, I usually only turn on yellow desk lamps because the overhead office lights give me headaches. One night, while we were getting ready to leave, I had my back to the door as a few colleagues were putting things away in my closet. That's when I heard a quiet giggle. It sounded exactly like Kyle. I turned around and said, "Kyle, what are you up to in there? You better not be messing up my closet." I didn't hear anything in response. I stepped into the closet, but no one was there. I brushed it off, assuming Kyle might have been nearby in the office. As I was closing the closet door, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow run out of my office. The shadow was too clear to be my imagination. I stepped into the hallway, but the only person there was Sarah, who was at the far end locking up her office. She noticed me and started walking over. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Did you see Kyle?" I asked with a laugh. "I think he's messing with me." "He left a little early today," she said. "What did he do?" "I don't want to sound crazy," I replied. "Why? What happened?" she asked, now sounding concerned. "I heard him giggle in my closet, then saw a shadow run out. That's why I looked out here. I thought I'd catch him." She looked skeptical and said, "It's probably just the lighting or he's gotten you on edge, but no, he isn't here." She waited while I grabbed my things and we left together. A few weeks later, I went to our shared workstation with my arms full and realized I had forgotten my ID badge. The badge works as a key card for certain areas. Kyle happened to be walking past my office, so I asked if he could grab it from my desk. He came back and said it wasn't there. At first, I laughed. "Kyle, are you serious?" "Yeah," he said. "It's not there." "I'm being serious." I went back to my office. The badge really wasn't on my desk. I clearly remembered taking it off, adjusting my clothes, and placing it there. I checked my bags, the floor, my drawers, the closet, my jacket pockets, and retraced every step I had taken. I knew it had to be in my office. I had used it earlier that day. After searching all morning, I informed management that it was missing. Everyone asked Kyle if he had taken it, and he insisted he hadn't, and I believed him. He'd never do anything that could jeopardize someone's job. For the rest of the day, I locked my office door whenever I stepped out. A few of us went out for lunch. When I returned, my badge was sitting exactly where I had originally left it on my desk. I asked our office manager, Candace, if she or our boss had stopped by. She said no one had been in my office since we left. She had been in the bullpen the entire time and no one passed by. Only Candace and our boss have keys to my office. I told Sarah and Kyle what happened. They were just as confused as I was. We had searched together earlier. About a week later, things started shifting around the office. Not just in my office, others experienced it too. I've worked here long enough to recognize the normal sounds of the building. One afternoon, a stack of folders behind me slid as if something had bumped into them. Nothing was there. Items began falling from shelves in my closet, even though they never had before. A coworker who shares a wall with me once made a loud noise like he had punched the wall. When I checked on him, he said his shelf had suddenly collapsed, knocking several things down. Sarah and Kyle also noticed things being slightly off. Kyle accused jokingly of moving his stapler under his desk. None of us had touched it. Sarah mentioned she kept finding her lunch bag under her desk, even though she always placed it on the counter behind her. At first, we assumed it was coincidence or small pranks, but it kept happening. We'd hear tapping on the walls like knocking or sounds of things being moved when no one was nearby. We often have college interns or high school volunteers. That part is normal. One semester, my intern Fiona arrived on her first day around 9 a.m. After introductions, I gave her a desk in my office and took her on a tour. She was quiet, possibly shy. I didn't think much of it since I'm an introvert too. She kept her jacket and backpack on. I told her she was welcome to get comfortable and use the closet or a locking drawer. She said she was fine. After she finished reading the manual, I gave her simple first day tasks. One involved delivering documents to the boss's office at the far end of the floor. After 10 or 15 minutes, she hadn't returned. I called my boss, and he confirmed he received the documents about 10 minutes earlier. I texted and called Fiona. No response. I began walking around the office. While talking to a coworker, I noticed Fiona turning into the hallway that leads to the washroom and emergency staircase. I excused myself and followed. Fiona? I called. No response. I opened the emergency exit door and called again. Nothing. As I turned back toward the washroom, I saw her coming out. Hey, Fiona, I said. She didn't react. She turned the corner away from my office. When I turned the same corner, she was gone. There was nowhere she could have gone without being seen. She would have needed to wait for the elevators. Kyle, standing outside his office, asked what I was doing. Have you seen Fiona? I asked. She's wearing her jacket and backpack. I saw her turn the corner, he said jokingly. Did you make her so miserable she quit already? Very funny, Kyle, I said, heading back to my office. I asked Candace if she'd seen Fiona. I saw her walk into the kitchen, Candace said. I followed her in to explain the rules, but she wasn't there. I swear I saw her go in. The kitchen has only one entrance. Candace is strict about it. If someone even breathes wrong in there, she knows. I sent out a message asking anyone who saw Fiona to direct her to me. A few minutes later, Candace returned and told me the school had contacted us. Fiona had withdrawn from the program. The receptionist said she signed out without speaking or making eye contact. Sarah later mentioned she also saw Fiona one moment and gone the next. Our office layout makes it nearly impossible to disappear without intentionally sneaking. I understand there may be logical explanations for all of this, or maybe it sounds unbelievable, but these are only some of the experiences, and honestly, you really have to be there to understand it. I'm only sharing because I've run out of logical explanations. All right, guys, the horror ends here for tonight. There will be more terrifying experiences on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Share it with your horror nerd friends. If you've experienced something paranormal, you can email your story to the address in the description. See you in the next video. Stay safe until then, if you can.